Oh, didn't move my mic in. Hi! Welcome to Trash with a capital T, where we give trashy books and movies the love they truly deserve, and some deserve more than others. I'm your host, Bobby. New videos are posted here every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And today we are doing something that I've wanted to do for a while. So, normally this video would be a Left Behind the Kids video. And I'm not dropping that series, I'm just bumping it over to next month because I'm trying to only do 4 videos a month, and I really wanted to fit this one in. So, Left Behind the Kids is still coming back. It's going to come back in February, but today I'm going to do another author recommendation video because this is an author who I truly love. He does have a fairly large fan base, but he has had some pretty big mainstream success. There's a TV show made of one of his books, but he is not someone that I think a lot of younger readers know. So this is going to be like a primer for one of my favorite horror authors, Bentley Little. He is someone who he has two modes really. He has his satirical horror and then his straightforward horror. Um, and some people prefer one over the other. I do enjoy both, although his satirical horror is actually quite entertaining and quite funny. His straightforward horror is still great. Like one of my favorites of his books is a fairly straightforward. I'm very excited if you can't tell. Very straightforward horror novel. That does still bring in some of his elements. He's always going to have some satire in there, especially when it comes to small town politics, race, stuff like that. But if we're talking Bentley Little, and if I'm talking recommendations, if you have never read him before, the book you have to start with is going to be The Store. So The Store was originally released, I have the book information up there, so if you see me looking over, that's why. The Store was originally released in 1996, and it's basically the evil Walmart book. So it's about a small town that is overtaken by a big box store, which might have otherworldly origins. It mixes in some pretty intense horror, but with a lot of comedy, satire, and there's also some twisted family relationships and all of that. I'm not going to get too deep into the plot because I don't want this video to be 4 hours long, but it is definitely this gives you a great idea of Bentley Little at his satirical best. Really wraps up that small town feel and what it feels like when you have a major retailer come in and take it over. Now, obviously, this is a much more insidious, evil retailer that is possibly turning some residents into weird vampire zombies. And it sells odd products that don't always appear at first. New aisles show up. And as the town the town is overtaken and the store gains control, the influence over the town becomes more twisted and over the residents, and it's forcing the residents to do certain things. It is really the book that got me hooked on Bentley Little. It was the first one I think I read. Yeah, it was. I had read a short story of his in one of the Hot Blood books called The Llama, which was very weird. But The Store was the first actual full-length novel that I read by him, and I was just blown away. Because it wasn't what I was expecting. It was so witty and smart, but it was still a horror novel. It didn't lose that horror. It had characters that I actually cared for, and their journeys were important to me. And not all of them got happy endings. Some of them got quite tragic endings. But there's a good amount of humor mixed in with the horror, which makes it work. I'm going to put an honorable mention here because I'm going to try not to make all of these as satire books. An honorable mention is going to be The Consultant, which was actually turned into a TV show by Amazon Prime. That one is a consultant is hired to take over a failing tech company, and as he comes in, he starts to weed out the employees in quite violent ways. There is, again, a lot of humor mixed in with satire. The Consultant is probably one of his best written books. I've actually read it twice just for fun because I actually listened to the audiobook with my husband. The main reason I picked The Store over The Consultant is because The Consultant does include at least one scene that I really think was not needed, and it was kind of gross. But, that's just horror books. Sometimes you run into stuff that's not necessarily the taste, but it's still a great book. And definitely brings the Bentley Little satire in a very different environment because you're dealing with, corporate America in that book. Okay. So Those two are definitely the satire books I would say check out. If you're interested in Bentley Little, the store, or The Consultant, those two, you're going to win either way. They're both great. If I'm talking straightforward horror for Bentley Little, my personal favorite is The Summoning, which is another small. I love small town horror books, and he does a lot of them. But The Summoning is. It was one that actually creeped me out, and there's scenes in that book that still disturb me to this day because you're dealing with, in that one, a small town that is being influenced by a creature that can kind of transform itself into either a person's greatest want or its greatest fear. It can get into the person's mind. So there's times when this monster shows up looking like Elvis, but there's other times where this monster shows up and it looks like Jesus. So it is influencing this small town into doing things they would not normally do to help sustain the monster. And gets really horrific because the monster, it's not just like a direct influence. It's not just when it's standing in front of you. It's also like it starts to spread throughout the town. So like one of the main characters notices that it influences her brother into doing these kind of twisted things. There is a scene where it talks a parent into sacrificing their child to it. And that scene is burned into my brain. I'm not going to go into detail because I want you guys to read these books yourselves. But if you are looking for more straightforward Bentley Little horror, The Summoning is 100% the one I would start with. Now, there are other really enjoyable ones. I think before I even read this, I would like The Academy, The Resort. Most of his books, especially in the 80s, 90s, like in the early 2000s, were titled The Something. So it was like The Store, The House, The Town, The Summoning, The Burning. There's a bunch of them. The Mailman, that was a really weird one. Although that one has shades of, not going to get into it. That one has shades of The Consultant in it, but you would see the early machinations of The Consultant in The Mailman. But The Summoning was the more straightforward horror book that just hit me the right way at the right time. And I thought it was really good. I don't want to get any spoilers. That's why I'm being very vague with the plot. But it's not extreme horror. He doesn't really, there is always some twisted sexuality in his books, which is really usually fun and kind of creepy and gross and shocking. But he doesn't always go over the top with the gore, and he doesn't with this one. But it's definitely like this just sense of dread and danger. And there's great scenes where the town, a lot of these small town books for him, they usually spiral into madness towards the end. So where the whole town is influenced, people have just lost their minds or they've given in and they're doing horrible, despicable things. This one kind of gets that, but it's more just the creature is outright attacking. And it's so tense. It's not a short book. It's like, I have Goodreads up. It's 542 pages, but I remember reading it in like 2 nights. I could not put it down. I absolutely adore this book. Highly recommend this one if you want a more straightforward horror novel. Now, just know there are social commentary topics that come up in it. There is that, like, he's always going to have that edge to his books. And that's one of the reasons I like him, because his books feel thought out. He has something to say within them, and I enjoy that. Now, I'm going to move on to the third and final book. If you want something that is more extreme, if you like your horror more extreme and dark and mean, he still has you covered. That book, and I don't know if this one is easier or harder to find, but that book I had to hunt down when I read it. And that is University. Not The University, just University. That was published in 1994. And it was actually out of print when I read it, but it might actually be in print now. Let me actually check. Oh, it's on Kindle. That one was definitely, and I'm recommending it. So I enjoyed the hell out of it. It is darker. It is gorier. It is way meaner than the other books. But if you like extreme horror, that is a good Bentley Little kind of entry into that field. It definitely doesn't feel like a lot of his other stuff. It's much meaner. And the ending's a little goofy. But overall, there are scenes in that book that, again, like The Summoning, stick with me to this day. And there are some good shockers in there. It definitely gets a little offensive, which I kind of thought was great. When I talk about stuff like this, sometimes if it's offensive, I'm like, I get what they were doing, and it was meant to be offensive. It's meant to be kind of, oh my God. And this book definitely has that, especially towards the end, especially towards the end. But I remember just eating this one up and absolutely loving it. But it is mean, it is dark, and it kind of leans into extreme horror. Now, we're not talking extreme horror. We're not talking things like Playground or anything like that. We're not getting into that, because I will say one thing Bentley Little does is he lets your mind fill in a lot of the more horrific blanks. And I'll use a scene from University. I think it's from University. Yeah, it is. There's a scene in University where they're at a party, and these two couples, like a professor and his wife and this hotshot student and his girlfriend, are kind of sparring verbally, and it leads to them wanting to play these horrific blood games. And you kind of allude to what's going to happen, like someone unrolls something and there's all these needles and knives and implements. But we don't get the outcome of that on the page. It leaves it to your brain about what is going to happen. And it might be in this, it might be University, it might be another. There's another one where there's like a home church, and it's implied that they're about to sacrifice a baby, but he doesn't include that on the page. We get up to the point where we know it's going to happen. Like, not even like a knife is raised, but it's like you see they talk about making sacrifice, and then they reveal the baby, and then the chapter ends. So while University does have plenty of grue and gore on the page, it does also let your mind fill in a lot of the blanks. And for me, that is kind of the best way to handle that stuff, because my mind is going to create something more horrific than any author could. Because once you start describing it, it turns into kind of a list of horrible like implements. And not a lot of writers are good at writing extreme horror or extreme gore. It's tricky. There's a balance to it. I think Jack Ketchum's probably the best for me, because his books, he focuses on the feeling of what's going on, the pain. And that makes it stick. But he also focuses on the emotion of it, if you've ever read Girl Next Door. But I'm getting off topic. So University definitely falls into that harder, meaner horror. It doesn't necessarily reflect Bentley Little's larger catalog, but it's, if you want something mean, that one definitely definitely fits that bill. The other one is kind of a runner-up for that one. I would definitely say is, I believe it's Death Instinct. I'm pulling it up because I didn't even think to pull this one up while I was. This one, yeah, it's Death Instinct. This one, the reason I'm not going to include it in my main recommendations, but I'm going to say if you want, something more mean and extreme, this one definitely fits that bill. But it also deals with some very outdated and kind of offensive ideas of savantism. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail because, again, don't want to spoil it. But go in knowing this is a sleazy, mean, nasty, violent horror book. I enjoyed it when I read it. Like, it's not going for good taste, guys. But that one, basically, this woman moves into a house with her son, and her neighbors start to notice something is wrong with the son, and he seems to not talk and have no real emotions, but he seems to have a very violent streak, but not like a lashing out and having a fit violent streak, but more of a cold, calculating violent streak. And as they explore this family and what's going on, they find out all of these weird, twisted things. And it turns out this boy is a savant, but his talent is murder. And it just escalates. Like, early on in the book, there's a scene where the main character finds her son. I believe it's her son. It's been a while since I read this book. Her son tied up in their garage, and the boy is like kicking a soccer ball at his head, trying to like see how hard he needed to kick it to inflict pain and to harm him. And it's this very disturbing scene. The book is really disturbing, but it's also quite interesting, and it's very fast paced. Bentley Little is really good with pace. So if you like mean horror, yeah, that one definitely falls into that category. You just got to be, if you're sensitive to certain topics, it might not be for you. But if you are up for a sleazy, mean, gross, fun horror novel, that one definitely fits the bill. Okay. I definitely recommended more than 5 books or more than 3 books. I think I recommended 5 with the 2 honorable mentions, but those are definitely the ones I would go for if you are interested in Bentley Little. He has a huge catalog. There are plenty of other ones if you are interested to explore. Some of the middle of the road ones for me that I still really loved, like the Academy and the Resort, not a bad place to start. They have a lot of his key components. Those two tend to lean a little more towards his horror stuff over his satire stuff, but like there's a ton of stuff in his library if you're looking for it that I think you could find something to enjoy. I have only I read 1 book by him that I didn't particularly love, and I know a lot of people do love it. So, you know, but these are, I think, good places to start exploring his vast library. Okay, this video has gone on long enough. I'm going to cut it here. As I said in the beginning, new videos are posted on this channel every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you like what you see, give me a like. Those likes matter a lot to me. I pay attention to that kind of interaction to keep seeing what people want more of. And if you like this video or you want to see more of what I got, subscribe, hit that bell so you get notified when new videos come out because I am releasing regularly. And on that note, love what you love, enjoy what you're reading and watching, and have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.